Super Nintendo is one of the greatest consoles ever made. There are excellent games available in that console, so today let's see the 50 best games of Super Nintendo. Of course, this is just my opinion. It's even hard to decide each one of the games here. It's sad to don't put some great games in the list, but these are the ones I've chosen. Hope you like it. Click in the like button and subscribe for more videos. Thank you so much, and let's go. Super Mario World, the biggest 2D Super Mario game ever, a great and absolute platformer game, the biggest releasement of Super Nintendo. Game released in 1990. Donkey Kong Country, the game that started the Donkey Kong platformer era, a game with impressive graphics, a good gameplay and insane soundtracks. Game released in 1994. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, the definitive action-adventure game for Super Nintendo, a solid and fun Zelda game with an excellent gameplay and map design. Game released in 1991. Super Bomberman, the classic Bomberman game, a strategy action game in a unique style, with a fluid gameplay, good levels and fun boss fights. Game released in 1993. F-Zero, one of the best racing games of its time, a futuristic game that did a great job creating a sort of 3D environments in a 2D game. Game released in 1990. Super Metroid, a game that no one was expecting to be that good, an excellent Metroidvania that came even before of Castlevania Symphony of the Night and helped create this subgenre. Game released in 1994. Top Gear, for me, the most iconic racing game of Super Nintendo, a game with beautiful visuals, a good gameplay, nice races and one of the best soundtracks ever created. Game released in 1992. Super Castlevania 4, an excellent action-adventure game, with great levels, challenging boss fights, good soundtracks, and a rich lore. Game released in 1991. Contra 3: The Alien Wars, a hardcore and famous run-and-gun series, an excellent game with great graphics and an addictive gameplay. Game released in 1992. Fight! Super Punch-Out, a charismatic boxing game. You start from zero and need to reach the top of the world, with a responsive gameplay and a unique style.
3, 4, fight!
Game released in 1994.
1, 2.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Turtles in Time. An awesome beat-em-up game with great levels and gameplay, crossing many times in history, even more fun to play with friends. Game released in 1991. Star Fox, a spaceship game that changed everything in its time, creating an impressive 3D simulation in a 2D console, making an extreme fun game. Game released in 1993. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, a charismatic, unique, and extremely hard action game set in a dark and dangerous world that you must pass the levels defeating different creatures and enemies. Game released in 1991. Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. The game that showed us that Mario could be a JRPG game too, and a very good one by the way, with an excellent gameplay. Game released in 1996. Kirby's Dream Land 3, a classic Kirby game, mixing platformer style with a sort of beat 'em up. The fun thing of the game is using different powers you can absorb from the enemies. Game released in 1997. Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest. For me, the best platformer game ever created, a clear evolution of the first game, with better graphics, gameplay, and mainly the boss fights. Game released in 1995. Secret of Mana, a beautiful and immersive action RPG, mixing the fast gameplay of action-adventure games with the RPG lore and system. Game released in 1993. Chrono Trigger, thought by many as the best JRPG of all time, the game is set in a huge and immersive world, with a massive storytelling and a fun gameplay. Game released in 1995. Mega Man X, The Returning of Mega Man, an excellent run-and-gun game, with a better gameplay, great levels and boss fights, great powers and a lot of secret items. Game released in 1993. Mortal Kombat 2, a brutal fighting game with charismatic and unique characters, and probably one of the first games that gave this brutality level to the players. Game released in 1993. Pilotwings, a flight simulator game released in 1990, even before Star Fox, and already had an excellent 3D simulation, a very fun game. Game released in 1990. Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, the second part of Mario World, but now you're the Yoshi, and must help the baby Mario to reach his goal, a game with a unique graphic style. Game released in 1995. Killer Instinct, a classic fighting game that the main point was doing insane combos, with quirky characters and a fast-paced gameplay. Game released in 1994. Street Fighter II, the game that helped to popularize fighting games, with great characters, insane boss fights, in my opinion the best Street Fighter game. Game released in 1991. Disney's Aladdin, a platformer game with extremely beautiful graphics set in the world of Aladdin, with a fluid gameplay and nice levels. Game released in 1993. Kirby Superstar, another game of this beloved platformer series, with a charismatic visual style, fun superpowers and a classic soundtrack. Game released in 1996. Super Mario Kart, the game that created a subgenre, an excellent kart game, allowing you to play with Mario's characters, racing and use your power boxes to win the races. Game released in 1992. Final Fight, a classic beat-em-up game. It was impossible to turn this game on and don't have fun, especially playing with friends. It's worth to play to this day. Game released in 1989. The Lion King. A platformer game set in the universe of The Lion King, with impressive graphics, a good gameplay and charismatic levels. Game released in 1994. Mega Man X2. The sequel of Mega Man X, with even better graphics, harder challenges, and a very good soundtrack, one of the best of the series. Game released in 1994. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. The definitive Mortal Kombat experience, with a lot of playable characters, classic arenas, and an ultra brutality level in game.
Round 2. Fight.
Game released in 1995. Demon's Crest, an immersive and dark action-adventure game, with a good gameplay and graphics, and some insane boss fights, a classic one. Game released in 1994. Earthbound, a very fun RPG game with a childish approach, but with an interesting storyline and a charismatic visual style. Game released in 1994. Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, the third and last Donkey Kong platformer game for Super Nintendo, with even better graphics, a fun gameplay, and fun boss fights. Game released in 1996. Indiana Jones' Greatest Adventures. A hard but very good 2D action-adventure game, the game is set in classic scenarios of the series, with a fun gameplay and even boss fights. Game released in 1994. Harvest Moon. If you like farming games and don't know this one, you should. This is basically the first great game in this style, still a great pastime experience in game. Game released in 1995. Breath of Fire 2, a medieval and fun JRPG, the second game of the series, with a rich universe and a nice gameplay. Game released in 1994. Dragon Quest III, an absolute classic JRPG, a game extremely popular to this day, with a great story, nice combat system, and very good characters. Game released in 1988. Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy is still one of the biggest JRPG series to this day, despite it changed, but the fourth game is an immersive and enriched game, with a great lore and characters. Game released in 1991. Zombies Ate My Neighbors, a unique and extremely charismatic run-and-gun game, with a fast-paced gameplay and a universe filled with zombies and other threats. Game released in 1993. Axelay, one of the best games of spaceship shoot 'em up, an absolutely gorgeous game with a great gameplay, nice levels and boss fights. Game released in 1992. Castlevania Dracula X, another great adventure in the universe of Castlevania, a challenging game with numerous enemies and boss fights. Game released in 1995. Super Bomberman 3, the third adventure of the series, with new features, new challenges and an extremely fun co-op or PvP mode. Game released in 1995. Mega Man X3, and again the classic run-and-gun game is back, and as always a game that every fan of challenging 2D games should play, a masterpiece. Game released in 1995. Illusion of Gaia, another great action RPG for Super Nintendo, a game with a good story and universe, a nice exploration, and an immersive lore. Game released in 1993. Super Bomberman 4. If you enjoyed the other games of the series, it's highly recommended to play this one. A lot of people have this as their favorite, really good. Game released in 1996. Metal Warriors, an action game that you control huge robots, each one of them with their own features, like different weapons, movements, and more, with a rousing PvP mode. Game released in 1995. Super Mario All-Stars, a game with some old Mario games, all set with a better visual style and audio system, especially Mario 3. Game released in 1993. Dragon Quest V, another great experience in the universe of Dragon Quest, a game with an insane visual style, a fun universe and great characters. Game released in 1992. Final Fantasy VI, the classic JRPG with another unprecedented journey, a great game with an immersive universe, beautiful 2D graphics, and a true JRPG experience. Game released in 1994. This is the video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. Click on the like button and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you, and so long.